Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry, and it's my pleasure to be speaking today about the Veterans History Project. And our guests are Tina Sablan, the Outreach Coordinator and Deputy Communications Director for the Office of Congressman Gregorio Khalili Sablan, and also a U.S. Marine Corps veteran himself, Randy Takai Johnson, currently a caseworker with the local chapter of the American Red Cross. Tina and Randy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kathy. Happy to be here.
So tell us, what is the Veterans History Project all about?
So this project was created by Congress in 2000, and the idea was to encourage members of communities all across our country to go out and interview veterans in their lives, to collect the stories of veterans and preserve them for all time in the Library of Congress. And the Veterans History Project is actually the largest oral history collection in our nation. There are over 100,000 stories of veterans who have whose stories are now part of this archive that have been collected since 2000, going all the way back to World War I through the present conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq. And in late 2015, it came to Congressman Sablan's attention that there were no stories of Northern Marianas veterans that were part of this archive.
Wow.
And he wanted to change that, and that's why we're here.
So how does this Veterans Project, History Project, work exactly?
Well, the Library of Congress created, there's a whole bunch of guidance actually. There's a website, it's loc.gov/vets. There's a field kit, and we have copies that we provide to anyone that wants to participate. We also, it includes everything from suggested interview questions to the forms that are required, do's and don'ts, tips for making sure that the submissions meet the standards for the Library of Congress. And basically, if you have a veteran that is willing to share his or her story, and somebody that's willing to listen and can ask the questions and prepare these collections to submit them, that's really all it takes. And the Congressional Office is interested in encouraging people in this community to participate and making it as easy as possible to do that.
And so we're speaking today to veterans who are willing to share their story, and also individuals who are willing to interview these veterans and basically here to share some information and make it easy for both sides to participate. Randy, you're one of the first people that have been interviewed for the project. Tell us first a little bit about your history in the service.
Well, I started my service in 2003. I signed up in May, and I went to boot camp. And then I graduated in August, and then shortly after I ended up going to my MOS school, which is basically your training school, your specialty, which was I studied as a combat engineer, and shortly within my 1 year span I was deployed to Iraq for OIF operations.
What's OIF?
Operation Iraqi Freedom.
Oh, okay. And you were discharged from the service in 2007?
Yes, that's correct.
What made you decide to be a part of the Veterans History Project?
Well, I felt that my story was unique to some of the other veterans that were on the mainland. That I came from an island in the Pacific that is a Commonwealth of the United States, and so it was very unique to some of them, like I said, but also in regards to I had some Puerto Rican comrades as well, so we kind of knew the same boat, what was going on, and so I thought it was unique that we should tell our story.
Now, Tina, I understand so far we have just started with the tip of the iceberg, 5 veterans now that have been interviewed, so there really is a great opportunity for people to get involved. Tell us what I was surprised when I was looking at what this project covers, that there's a time period that it covers, or a series of like wars, for example, starting with World War One,
Yes.
and it's amazing that there. I don't know. Are there still people out there? Not here on Saipan, of course, but starting with World War One all the way up until the Iraq War, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All the way up to the present. So, and that includes, the Cold War, every conflict in that period of time. From World War One through the present.
So, tell us a little bit about the procedure, like how it would work if somebody were interested. Like they're like, yeah, I want to talk to some veterans about their story, and I want to be a part of this important project.
Mm-hmm.
What could they expect?
So we'd really encourage them to contact the congressional office, let us know that they're interested in participating. If they're a veteran who wants to share the story, we can help walk him or her through the process so they know what to expect, and also make arrangements for the interviews, whether it's with our office or with the volunteer that's interested in doing that. If they're individual volunteers, teachers that want their students to participate as a class project, or other organizations that are interested in collecting veteran stories, we can also provide the technical support. Like I said, to make this as easy as possible, we can help mail these collections to the Library of Congress. We can help them prepare the forms. We can also assist with some of the more technical aspects of audio and video documentation.
And what's interesting is that the project is allowing veterans to tell their story either through personal narratives, like you're describing, or also correspondence, which may be letters, journals, and visual materials, photographs, drawings, scrapbooks. So it's really up to the individual veteran, I assume, then, how they want to share their story.
Yes, and it is an incredibly rich collection, even from the 5 collections that we have submitted so far from the Marianas. We have an unpublished memoir. It's like almost 300 pages.
Wow.
We have original photographs. We have some poetry, some essays that have been written by veterans. We have original letters to and from loved ones. It's really moving. And then of course we have the recorded video interviews and that it's the diversity and the richness of the collections, and I think that make this such a unique and really special project.
Randy, I think a lot of people are familiar nowadays with things like post-traumatic stress disorder and things like that. Was it difficult for you to share your story, or was it something that you were eager to do?
Initially, it was a difficult choice. I do suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress, and every veteran is different with PTSD. I mean, some are light about it, some are really do need the assistance with the VA, and that's something that was trying to be pushed as far as our Army reservists, coming back. But it was difficult for me overall. And then initially, or afterwards, I just made the choice to share my story because I thought it would help. With my PTSD, letting it out, letting the frustration, and letting it be aware of what was going on.
And do you find now, having shared your story, that it has helped you?
It has helped me in regards to, I guess, being a bit more open about it. Now that it's not like a stigma, and people are being a bit more accepting of what happened, what's going on, because it's an experience that, going to war is not a regular experience that anybody should go through. It's something that's unique, and unfortunately, a lot of us have decided to, take the stand, take the oath, and hold the line.
I think, I can imagine that it would be difficult sometimes to share something with like family members or friends that they really cannot relate to because they've never been there, and then also it being so difficult. So, number one, I commend you for being one of the first to share this, and we hope that what you've done will encourage others to participate.
Yeah, I hope so too. I really do.
Tina, you've had an opportunity to now hear some of the stories. What are some of the things that stand out to you about what the veterans have shared already?
Well, if there's one thing I would suggest for anybody that's interested in interviewing veterans who have some really unique and incredible stories to share, it's really to let the veteran lead and tell the story. And And, you know, what I often found, you know, like often the interviews have started out with the veteran saying, well, you know, maybe this will last 15 minutes. The requirement for the Library of Congress, you know, their standard is at least a minimum recorded interview of 30 minutes. And, you know, and often you know, we've done these 5 times now, and almost every single one of them said, I don't really know if we can fill 30 minutes. and every single one of the interviews that we've submitted has lasted at least an hour and a half. And you know, you find like you could go on, and really I could listen for on and on. I mean, the stories are incredible and touching, you know, and really, and it's not just, I want to also add, it's not just about, you know, the wartime experience, the experience of combat. It's also the experience of service. How did you keep in touch with the members of your family? How did you end up joining the service in the first place? Were you drafted? Were you enlisted? Did you, you know, did you volunteer? It's there. You know, everybody has their own reasons for joining and their own experiences while in the service, and then the experience coming home too is also unique. It comes with its own sets of challenges, and I really think that the more accessible we make these stories as we collect them to our community, the better able we all will be to understand and provide more support to our veterans as they're coming home, and to their families also.
Randy shared a little bit about how being a part of the interview has affected him and changed him and his thought process. As an interviewer, do you feel that what you've done so far has affected you in any particular way?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's a really powerful and enriching experience to, and you know, and it feels like a privilege, like a real honor to interview somebody and to just hear them tell their story, their firsthand account of what they've been through and what they've learned, and, you know, messages for future generations. It's and you know, and to know also that these stories will be part of our nation's history forever. I mean, it's going to be part of the Library of Congress. It will be preserved for posterity. To know that future generations can also be part of this storytelling experience and learn from that is it's an incredible honor.
Now, I understand these interviews are being made available online as well. Is that correct?
Yes. So the Library of Congress is digitizing all of these collections. So I mentioned there's over 100,000. It's a long process. It's an ongoing process. They have a huge collection, and they've gone through about 25% of those of those 100,000. That's now digitized and available for people. So you can actually go onto the website loc.gov/vets and check out the stories, read the letters, you know, listen to the recorded interviews of what's up there so far. And then we are actually cooperating with the Humanities Council to make the stories of our local veterans available to the public, you know, since it will be a while before they'll become available to the world on the LOC website. We want to make them more available here online. And actually one of the projects that the Humanities Council has taken on is they're looking to edit and put together a short film that features some of the excerpts of the video interviews that we've done and some of the photos that were submitted as part of this project. So we're looking forward to that coming out sometime before Veterans Day.
Awesome. Well, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about how people can get involved, and as well as some other things. We're speaking today with Tina Sablan of the Office of Congressman Gregorio Khalili Sablan, and also Randy Takai Johnson, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, about the Veterans History Project, which just was launched recently here in the Northern Marianas, and that we'd love to have more people participate in. We'll be back after this break.
We're celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Northern Marianas Humanities Council, and we are now accepting nominations for the 2016 Governor's Humanities Awards. Would you like to nominate someone who has made an outstanding contribution to the humanities? The categories are Research and Publication in the Humanities, Preservation of Traditional Cultural Practices, Preservation of CNMI History, Lifetime Achievement in the Humanities, or Outstanding Humanities Teacher inside or outside the classroom. Nomination forms are available at northernmarianashumanities.org, or at our office at Springs Plaza in Gualarai. The deadline to submit is 4:30 p.m. on Friday, October 14, 2016.
Welcome back to Your Humanities Half Hour. Today we're talking about the Veterans History Project, and with us is Tina Sablan of the Office of of Congressman Gregorio Kilili Sablan, and also U.S. Marine Corps veteran Randy Takai Johnson. Randy, let's address the veterans directly. I imagine some of them may be reluctant for various reasons to share their story. Maybe they feel it's not significant. Maybe they have PTSD like you did. Talk to them. How did you get wrangled into this project? As he turns and looks at Tina.
Well, I thought it was a good idea to tell my story because with my story comes with a lot of. I had lost friends while out in Iraq. I lost, good buddies that I made friends with, and their stories are not going to be told because they've moved on, they've passed on, and they will forever remain young because that's the age they died at. And so I felt that it was important that I also tell my story and it would intertwine with their story, so I get to tell a bit about their story, which will be forgotten because I'm the only one that knows it, or
That's
there's a few of
interesting.
us that do know it, and it'll be lost in time.
So it's kind of like to honor your friends.
Honor them.
Do you feel that, what about veterans who may say, like, my story is, as Tina was mentioning during the break, sometimes the veterans will say, well, yeah, I think I can do a 15-minute interview, and then they end up talking for over an hour or an hour and a half. Why
Actually, I was a victim to that. I thought it was going to take like maybe half an hour, and then she kind of looked at me and was like, you're over like an hour or something. And I was like, what? You rambled on too much. So
There's a lot to say.
yeah, there's a lot to say. I didn't realize it, and there's a lot of parts that I still feel that I missed that were significant, but I can't remember them right now.
And actually, it's not uncommon for multiple stories to come from the same veteran. The Veterans History Project folks that I've talked to have said that, and actually, I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you, Randy, but so one of the coordinators in Washington, D.C., she said, often many of the stories that have been collected are from veterans who are older. They've had the benefit of decades of time, really, to reflect on their experience and to be able to talk about it, right? But, Randy, he's... what are you, 30s? I don't know, not to put you on the spot. But now we're also seeing younger veterans that are willing to share their story. And one of the things that the Veterans History Project coordinator mentioned was, to ask them to consider, tell your story now and consider telling your story 20 years from now, and it could be a really fascinating thing to see how that perspective may have changed over time. One of the reasons for the project, in addition to preserving these for future generations and just making sure that this part of our history is protected and cherished, is for research, and we have scholars that go to the Veterans History Project all the time, doing all kinds of historical research, and so that part of the military service experience, showing when they first got out of the service and then when they've been out of the service for many years, is also a really interesting part of the story.
Well, Randy addressed the veterans and tried to, give them a little push to get involved. And let's address now the people who are interested in doing the interviews or think they might be interested. Maybe they don't feel qualified, but you're here to help. Tell us, what are you doing to help prepare?
It's interesting, something you said earlier about how it might not be so easy for veterans to share their stories with members of their own families. It's actually something that I've heard other families say, like where I've heard sisters and mothers and daughters of veterans and other relatives say, I've never been able to really hear what their experience was like, and it could be because they've never asked. That's one thing, but we do really try to make this as easy as possible, and it's amazing, there's suggested interview questions that come with the field kit, And it starts from like something as that's relatively easy to talk about. How did you get involved in the service, for example? You start with those kinds of questions, the background, and it could be a real bonding experience for family members that have either never asked or maybe been afraid to ask or were reluctant to ask, and we can also just kind of help them walk through that process. And it's a learning experience and like any other in some ways, and just to keep in mind that you're really having a conversation with somebody that you love or somebody that you respect, and as long as you kind of keep that in mind, I think it might be easier than you'd expect. One other thing I want to add is, in terms of doing like video documentation, so we have like an actual camcorder that we use, but everybody's got a camera with with the fancy video camera that's part of it, right? And our video recorder, and we are starting to see, not yet here, but in other communities, that students are just using their phone cameras, and they might get like some kind of microphone that they can attach to that, and you can just do an interview just like that, like in the comfort of your own home with a member of your family. It's very doable, and it has been done.
And you're going to also be offering some training. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So the Veterans History Project and the American Folklife Center of the Library of Congress will actually be sending a trainer, an oral historian who out of LA actually, who's done these workshops all over. She's flying out in October, the first week of October, to do community training workshops and some workshops tailored for high school and college students the first week of October. And so we really encourage people to contact the Congressional office. Our number is 323-2647. They can also email kilili@mail.house.gov. And let us know if they're interested in registering, or give us a heads up so we can know how many people are likely to show up. So October 4th is the date that we've set for the workshop on Tinian.
What day of the week is that? Would you happen to know?
That will be on Tuesday.
Okay.
And then October 5th on Rhoda, and October 8th here on Saipan.
Okay, and that is a Saturday.
That's a Saturday.
8th. Okay. Yes. Well, this is a great opportunity. I can just imagine that it would be a great project for like a U.S. history class or a Northern Marianas history class.
Absolutely. It could be
feel free to suggest it to your teacher as extra credit if you're interested in doing it.
Yeah, and we really recommend this as a project, especially for students that are grades 10, so sophomores and up. It's also a great community service project. So, students have community service hours that they do have to fulfill in order to graduate.
Yeah.
So students who are interested in brushing up on oral history skills, interviewing skills, who are really interested in film and audio documentation, and interested in veteran stories, this is a really terrific opportunity to do all of that. There's also the Boy Scouts. They are actually major contributors of veteran stories. The American Red Cross also. We've reached out to the VFW Saipan Post also to raise awareness that there is this project, and we've had a couple of their members thus far express interest, or who have already participated or expressed interest in doing some interviews and getting other veterans to join. So yeah, there's lots of outreach going on. The public school system has also said that they'd like to get their teachers involved in this workshop that I mentioned, but students are also definitely welcome to come along and contact us for more details. We're still finalizing the venues, but those dates are pretty much set: October 4th on Tinian, October 5th on Rhoda, and October 8th on Saipan.
Well, we definitely want to get as many people involved as possible. So yes, please encourage, others, and also yourself, sign up in advance for those workshops, or contact Kalili's office if you'd like more information. And we also definitely want to make sure that the voice of the CNMI veterans is part of this national project and part of the National Archive. So I'm excited. it's great that the office has taken this up, and we're off to a good start with people like Randy. And I think it's going to be a great end product in the end. Randy, any final thoughts before we go?
Oh, I'm just worried what kind of letters they're going to post, because I don't remember what I wrote in some of them, so kind of curious. I can't remember what
the letters that you shared.
Are you saying you shared some letters?
I shared some letters. I shared like a journal, and I just can't remember what the heck was in it. So
So I remember.
That'll be interesting. Did you keep a journal when you were there?
I did. I kept when I was wounded, the first time I was wounded in combat, the first time, and then shortly after, I started a journal because I was recovering, and so I just kept all my logs of what happened, what I was going through. It was good. I think it was called free writing, where you just write into a book, whatever your thoughts were, and I did that, and it turned into a journal.
Wow.
And he actually submitted that as part of his collection.
Well, that's very
That's why
open
I'm
of
worried.
you. Oh, that's why you're worried. Yeah,
I don't
okay.
remember what I put in it. So.
Now, but that's great that you mentioned that, because now you got everybody curious, and they're going to want to know what it was, so they're going to be paying attention to the project just because they want to read your
Well,
journal.
I got about, maybe, 6 months to move off the island? So.
It's not going to be that bad.
Okay.
We understand. Well, we're trying to understand, which is why they have this project. But Tina, your final thoughts before we go.
Well, first, I just want to thank you, Kat, for having us both on your show. And I'd really like to just encourage any veteran in our community who'd like to be part of this project, and anyone, individual, organization, who would like to participate in collecting the stories of our veterans, to please contact the Congressional Office, sign up for the workshops that are coming up on your islands, and and be part of our nation's history.
That's right. It's the Veterans History Project, and it aims to make the present and the future generations, give them the opportunity to hear directly from our veterans and to better understand the realities of war. Thank you both so much for making time and for sharing today.
Yep, thank you so much.
Our guests today have been Tina Sablan, the Outreach Coordinator and Deputy Communications Director of the Office of Congressman Gregorio Kalili Sablan, and also Randy Takai Johnson, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. This has been Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.